So, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was like kind of amazing. It's genuinely insane how much passion and thought went into a sequel for Puss in Boots. Like, was anybody even asking for this? The Shrek universe basically has no hype around it these days, and the original Puss in Boots was like not that well received, but here we are. A sequel to Puss in Boots is out, and it's like the best animated movie of the year. The basic premise of this movie is that Puss loses his 8th life because he's a cat. Get it? And he sets out on a quest for the mythical last wish so he can get his lives back. It's a pretty basic plot, but honestly I don't think plots have to be that intricate if the characters are well written. My favorite example of this is actually not a movie but a game, The Last of Us. The plot is a basic A to B road trip thingy, but the two main characters are just so believable and realistic that you get pulled into their story anyway. It's actually not a bad way to tell a story since you don't have to be distracted with what's happening and you can be more tuned into the characters. For a kids movie, this is like really strangely mature. Puss in this movie basically retires from swashbuckling or whatever he does because he's so scared of losing his last life. The film establishes early on that he built up his entire identity off of being a fearless hero, but he loses that when he loses his last life, so he just kind of retires to being a house cat. His fear is personified by the main antagonist, literally death. The main antagonist of this movie is literally the personification of death. He is, legitimately, maybe the coolest animated villain I've ever seen in my life. From his character design to this creepy whistle he does every time he appears. I genuinely am struggling to think of a villain that's cooler. Honestly, if I saw this movie when I was a kid, I think I would have straight up shit my pants when this character is on screen. He's just cool. He's really, really cool. But the best part about him isn't even that he's just cool. He's genuinely just such a great villain, and Puss has a real paranoia and anxiety about facing him throughout the movie. Every time he runs into death, he just gets scared and runs away. They made Puss in Boots, let me reiterate, Puss in Boots, a character with depth and real complexity. I don't really want to spoil everything he goes through in this film, but there are some scenes that are like really dark for a kid's movie. He has a scared character whose identity has been shattered by his new circumstances. He's actually flawed. I feel like a lot of kids' movies don't really have interesting lead characters, and so I really appreciate just how far they went with this. Besides Puss, there's Kitty Softpaws, who can't really trust anybody and also has some character flaws, but they're kind of spoilery, so I don't want to get too into it. But she's a good character to bring along for the journey, and the banter between Puss and her is genuinely really funny. There's also Perito, who's the comic relief character sidekick, and he's pretty funny too. Actually, speaking of humor, this movie's hilarious.
All I have to do is stop and smell the roses.
This is stupid.
All I smell is bullshit.
It has that same kind of edgy and mature humor that made Shrek so successful, and I love that they included that in the film. In terms of grievances, my only major grievance in this movie is that I just think there's too many characters. There are 3 main antagonists in this film. Besides Death, who's my favorite of the 3, there's also Goldilocks and the 3 Bears and Jack Horner. I don't really mind Goldilocks too much. It makes sense that you'd want an antagonist in this film that's also searching for the last wish, since Death doesn't really want that, because he's just Death. Goldilocks isn't just some purely evil character, and there's also some complexity there that I won't go into. I still think she makes the film a little more bloated overall, but I understand the need for a character like her. But I absolutely hate Jack Horner. I absolutely despise his character. He's big and stupid and ugly and literally has no complexity to him whatsoever besides being comically evil. And don't get me wrong, there's some scenes in this movie with him that I like, but overall I feel like he doesn't really fit in with what the spirit of this film is. It's okay for Death to not have much character to him because he's literally the personification of, well, death. I mean, what else is he supposed to do other than be Death? He just has to be there to scare Puss, and he fills that role pretty well. His inclusion is necessary to the conflict of our main character. Every other character in this film is treated with such care and complexity, and it makes me sad that Jack Horner's character was even included. What is the point of having this comically evil villain who just wants to take over the entire world or whatever? Every character in this movie feels so purposeful, but he just seems totally over the top and unnecessary. It might just be me, but I feel like the film would have been much better paced and enjoyable without him. And yes, I understand that I'm supposed to kind of hate him, but I just think it goes a little too far. But if I circle back around to some stuff that I actually like about this movie, it'd be a mistake for me not to mention the amazing animation. It's clearly taking some inspiration from Into the Spider-Verse, but it doesn't feel like it's just copying Spider-Verse either. It's kind of doing its own thing that's very similar but still stylistically distinct, and everything is super expressive and vibrant and really fun. Also, there's a scene at the very start of this movie that reminds me heavily of Attack on Titan. This is an awesome kids movie that goes the extra mile and treats its characters with respect. It's really refreshing to see in a world where animated movies are seen as nothing more than reproducible garbage that can just be pumped out year after year because they're for kids and kids are stupid and don't need to have good themes or valuable takeaways in this movies or something. This movie actually respects its audience, child or adult, and is just super fun. I give this movie 4 catnips out of 5. I hate Jack Horner, and if he wasn't in this, it would probably be closer to a 5 out of 5, but whatever. If you're really into my takes on movies, then consider subscribing to the channel if you want. Also, I'm not going to do short form reviews like this forever, and eventually I want to move into doing longer and more in-depth videos. I'm only doing this so that I can develop my style a little more and get better at writing and editing. So if you want to be up to date on my thoughts on all movies, since I'm not going to be doing this style forever, I really encourage you to go follow me on Letterboxd. I usually watch a movie every day, so yeah, definitely give me a follow over there if that's something that sounds interesting to you. I don't really have any social media accounts for me to plug, but if that's something you're interested in me making at some point, then definitely let me know. That's about it. Stay safe. I love you. Bye bye.